AITA for refusing to let my sister's kids stay in my house after she abandoned them on my doorstep. I, 34 am, have always been the responsible one in my family. I live in a decent-sized city, have a stable job in IT, and own a small house that I take great pride in. My sister, Lisa, 29F, has always been the opposite. She's struggled with steady work, made poor decisions, and has been fairly unreliable, but I've always tried to support her when I could. Recently, something happened that's made me question just how much responsibility I should take for her and her kids. I'm hoping to get an outsider's perspective because my family is pretty divided on this. A few months ago, Lisa got pregnant with her second child. She already has a 4-year-old son, Jake, who she's raised mostly on her own, with some help from our mom and me when needed. Lisa's relationship with the father of the second child is complicated. He's in and out of jail and has never really been involved. Lisa said she wanted to make it work and promised to take care of both kids, so I didn't push. Fast forward to last month. Lisa suddenly calls me out of the blue one evening and says she's in a bad place, emotionally and financially, and that she needs me to watch both kids for a while. She claims she's going to a treatment program for her mental health and addiction issues and that she'll be back in a few weeks. I agreed to watch Jake for a few days, but felt uncomfortable taking on her newborn too, especially with such short notice. But Lisa insisted, so I reluctantly said yes. The next day, she dropped both kids off at my house at 10 p.m., no luggage, no explanation, just a quick goodbye. She said she had to leave immediately and that she'd be in touch soon. Days turned into weeks. I barely heard from her. I reached out multiple times, offering help and asking when she'd be back or if she needed anything. No response. My mom was worried, but couldn't reach her either. I ended up taking care of 2 kids, one a newborn, with no real support. I adjusted work, bought groceries, and tried to maintain some semblance of normalcy for the kids. About 2 weeks in, I got a text from Lisa saying she decided not to come back and that she was starting fresh somewhere else. She said she'd call when she was ready to be part of her kids' lives again. I was stunned and angry. I felt abandoned. My house was suddenly full of responsibility I hadn't signed up for long term. I called my mom, and we agreed Lisa was basically passing off her children to us with no plan or care. I told Lisa that she couldn't expect me to just keep her kids indefinitely. I asked her to get her affairs in order and to come up with a plan because I wasn't going to be their full-time caregiver without any support or communication. I reminded her that while I love my nephew and niece, I have my own life and responsibilities. Lisa blew up on me, accusing me of being selfish, not family-oriented, and of throwing her kids under the bus. She said I should be grateful she trusted me with her children and that I was acting like a cold-hearted uncle. Our family got involved with some siding with Lisa and others backing me. My mom thinks I should be more patient and that Lisa's struggling, so I should be more understanding. My dad told me I was right to set boundaries. Some cousins said I was being harsh and should step up for my family. Now I'm stuck in a tough spot. I love those kids and want what's best for them, but I'm not equipped or willing to be a single dad unexpectedly. I've reached out to social services to ask about options and have tried to get Lisa to engage in any co-parenting plan, but she refuses. Am I the asshole for refusing to let my sister's kids live with me indefinitely after she basically abandoned them? Or should I just accept that family means stepping up no matter what? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my sister's new boyfriend move in with us, even though she's pregnant. This has been an ongoing issue for the past few months, and I'm starting to wonder if I'm really the asshole here or if I'm justified in how I'm handling this situation. I, 29F, live in a 3-bedroom apartment with my fiancé, 32M, and our dog. My sister, 26F, is currently pregnant with her first child. She's about 5 months along now. We have always been close, and we often help each other out. When she first told me she was pregnant, I was supportive and offered whatever help I could. She works part-time at a coffee shop and has been seeing a guy named Jake for about 3 months now. From the beginning, Jake seemed a bit off to me. He's 34, and while he has a job, it's not very stable. He often talks about his great plans and how he's working on things, but I never really got a sense of responsibility from him. My sister was head over heels, though, and I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. Fast forward a couple of months, and my sister tells me Jake wants to move in with her. I figured they'd find a place of their own, but then she dropped a bomb. She wants him to move into our apartment with us, her, and the baby once it arrives. My fiancé and I live comfortably here. It's a nice place, but not huge. 3 bedrooms means 1 for us, 1 for the dog stuff, and 1 guest room that we sometimes use as an office. The thought of adding another adult, especially someone I'm not comfortable with, into the mix stressed me out. When I said as much, my sister accused me of being selfish and not wanting to support her or the baby. I try to explain that it's not about her or the baby, but about Jake. He hasn't shown any signs of being reliable, and I worry about the dynamic in the apartment. My fiancée shares my concerns. When we brought it up to her, she said we were being unfair and that Jake is family now, so he deserves a place to stay. I suggested that maybe Jake could find his own place nearby or that she and Jake find an apartment together when the baby is born. But she said that's not possible because of her low income and that Jake needs a stable environment to help care for the baby. She said if we don't let him move in, she might have to move back home with our parents, who live a couple of states away and aren't exactly thrilled about having a newborn to care for. At this point, I felt cornered. I don't want my sister struggling, but I also don't want to live with someone who makes me uneasy, especially with a baby involved. I've seen how Jake can be irresponsible. He often cancels plans last minute, shows up late to work, and sometimes disappears for hours without telling anyone. 2 weeks ago, she showed up at my door with a duffel bag, saying Jake had nowhere else to go and that he'd be staying with us temporarily until they figure things out. I told her firmly that wasn't going to happen. She got upset, threatened to cut contact, and said she didn't want to rely on people like me who aren't willing to help. Since then, things have been tense. She's been more distant, and I'm worried about how this will impact our relationship long term. I still want to be there for her and the baby, but I also need to set boundaries. My fiancé agrees with me, and we're both feeling stressed. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move in with us, even though she's pregnant and needs support? Am I being unreasonable? I just want what's best for the baby and for everyone involved, but I also need to protect my own home and peace of mind. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what she did to my fiancé? This has been a really difficult and painful situation for me, and I honestly don't know if I'm being unreasonable or not. I'm 29F, engaged to my fiancé, Josh, 31, and my sister, Claire, 32F, is getting married in about 2 months. Our family has always been close, and while Claire and I aren't exactly best friends, we've never had serious issues, until recently. Claire has always been a little controlling and dramatic, but this time she crossed a line I can't ignore. Let me start from the beginning. Josh and I have been together for 5 years and got engaged last year. We plan to get married sometime next summer, but Claire's wedding was scheduled for early fall this year, so we agreed to put our own wedding on hold to support her and give her the spotlight she wanted. The thing is, Claire's wedding planning has been intense, to say the least. From the start, Claire wanted everything to be perfect and on her terms. She asked me to be a bridesmaid, which I was happy to do, and Josh to be a groomsman. No problem, right? Except that she kept micromanaging the wedding party in ways that felt controlling, like dictating what color underwear to wear or how to style our hair down to the exact curl pattern. But what hurt the most was what happened about a month ago at her bachelorette party. Claire invited all her bridesmaids and some close friends to a weekend getaway. Josh was not invited because she said it was a girls-only event, which was fine. What I didn't expect was that she would plan a surprise fun night that completely humiliated Josh and seriously embarrassed me in front of our family and her friends. The night of the bachelorette, Claire arranged for Josh to be tricked into coming to the venue under false pretenses. He thought it was a casual dinner with some of Claire's friends to meet everyone. When he showed up, Claire had arranged for a comedian to roast him. This wasn't your usual lighthearted roast. The comedian went after Josh's insecurities, made fun of his job, appearance, and even his family background in a way that felt cruel. Claire was laughing the loudest, egging the comedian on. I was mortified and begged her to stop, but she just told me to lighten up and said Josh needed to learn how to take a joke. Josh was visibly upset, but tried to laugh it off. It broke my heart. That night, Josh told me he felt betrayed and humiliated by Claire. He was hurt that his soon-to-be sister-in-law could do something so cruel in front of people she supposedly cared about. When I confronted Claire the next day, she brushed it off as just a joke and told me I was overreacting. I told her that if this was how she wanted to treat Josh, then maybe I shouldn't be part of her wedding party. She accused me of being dramatic and told me I was ruining her special time. The tension between us grew, and the situation escalated to the point where I told Claire I wouldn't be attending the wedding if she didn't apologize to Josh and me. Claire refused and said she didn't need to apologize for having fun. She also started telling family members that I was being selfish and disrespectful by not supporting her. Josh and I talked it over, and he agreed he didn't want to be around people who treated him that way. I told my parents what happened, and while they sympathize with Josh, they think I should just let it go and go to the wedding to keep the peace. I feel like this is a matter of respect and boundaries. I don't want to stand by and watch someone I love be humiliated, especially by my own sister. I've told Claire multiple times that if she sincerely apologizes and makes it right, I will attend, but so far she's refused. Am I the asshole for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what she did to Josh? Should I just suck it up for the sake of family? Or am I justified in standing my ground? AITA for refusing to apologize to my sister for ruining her wedding after what happened with the photographer? This happened about 6 months ago, and honestly, I'm still pretty heated about it. I've been debating whether to post this or not, but here goes. My sister, Emma, got engaged to her fiancé, Josh, about a year ago. They'd been together for several years and finally decided to tie the knot. The wedding was a big deal. They were spending a lot of money, and Emma was absolutely obsessed with making it perfect. I mean, she's always been a bit of a control freak, but this was next level. She had planners, schedules, color-coded timelines, and everything planned down to the second. I was the maid of honor, and I was happy to help with the preparations as much as I could while juggling my full-time job. But Emma was very clear that I had to follow her lead, and that everything had to go exactly according to her plan. Naturally, I agreed because, well, it's her day. Fast forward to the day of the wedding. Everything was going smoothly at the venue until it was time for the couple's photo shoot. Emma had hired a well-known photographer who was supposed to capture all the moments perfectly. However, things quickly started to go south. Right before the shoot started, the photographer told Emma that his camera had malfunctioned and that all the pictures he took so far were corrupted and unusable. Emma freaked out, and understandably so. But here's where it gets tricky. I happened to be nearby when the photographer mentioned something about the backup SD cards being locked in his car. The venue was huge, and the car was parked a good 10-minute walk away. Emma was beside herself, so I offered to run and grab the backup cards for him. The photographer insisted that it was fine and that he could just reshoot with his phone, which wasn't ideal, but better than nothing. Emma was panicking and asking me to fix it, so I decided to go get the cards myself. I figured it'd be a quick in and out. On my way out, I ran into some of the guests who were starting to get restless because the photo shoot was holding up the reception. I decided to be honest and told them about the situation, trying to keep them calm. But one guest, who happened to be a distant cousin of Emma's fiancé, overheard me and made a big deal out of it on social media, complaining that the wedding was a disaster. I didn't think much of it until Emma found out. She was livid, claiming I was making things worse by airing dirty laundry online. I explained that I never shared any personal details, just the fact that there was a technical issue delaying the photos. She accused me of embarrassing her and ruining her perfect day. The kicker came when the photographer finally got the backup cards and managed to recover the photos. But because of the delay, the photo shoot was rushed, and Emma was unhappy with how the pictures turned out. She blamed me for not staying to manage the situation and for letting the day spiral out of control. Emma has been giving me the cold shoulder ever since and insists I owe her a public apology for ruining her wedding. I told her I did my best and that I wasn't responsible for the camera malfunction or the social media comment from a guest I didn't even know well. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to apologize to my sister after her wedding got messed up because of the photographer's equipment failure and the subsequent chaos? Or should I just swallow my pride and make peace for the sake of family? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of how my family treated my fiancé? This has been eating at me for a while, and I really need some perspective on whether I'm being unreasonable or not. This situation involves my family, my fiancé, and my sister's wedding. To give a bit of background, I, 29F, have been with my fiancé, Mark, 31M, for 3 years now. We got engaged about 6 months ago, and everything was going great until recently. My sister, Emily, 27F, has been planning her wedding for over a year. We've always been close growing up, but as adults, our relationship has been a little strained because she tends to be very controlling and judgmental, especially about people I date or spend time with. When I started dating Mark, she didn't seem to like him from the beginning. She never outright said why, but I got the vibe it was because he's a bit more laid back and not as successful as she expected her sister's partner to be. Mark works a steady job and is very kind and supportive, but he's not a corporate lawyer or anything flashy, which I suspect disappointed her. When Emily announced her engagement and started planning her wedding, she invited me and Mark early on, but there were some red flags. For example, she said she was limiting plus ones to only those in serious relationships and no casual dates, which was fine, but when Mark was invited, the tone of the conversation felt dismissive. Then a couple months ago, Emily and her fiancé invited everyone over to finalize seating arrangements, and that's where things got bad. During the meeting, Emily made a point of publicly joking about Mark not fitting in with her friends and family. She said something along the lines of, "Mark's nice and all, but I hope he knows he's basically the only person here who doesn't have a six-figure salary or a fancy degree." Everyone laughed, including Emily's fiancé and some relatives. Mark looked uncomfortable but didn't say anything. I felt humiliated, but I kept quiet because I didn't want to cause a scene. What hurt even more was that my parents, who were there, didn't say a word. They've always tried to avoid conflict, but it felt like they were siding with Emily by staying silent. After the meeting, Mark told me he didn't want to go to the wedding if this was how he was going to be treated. I tried talking to Emily about it, explaining that those comments were hurtful and unfair. She brushed it off, saying it was just a joke and that Mark should have a thicker skin. She also said she didn't want someone who can't take a joke around on her big day. This felt like a slap in the face because I expected my sister to at least acknowledge that what she said was out of line. After that conversation, I told Mark that I wasn't going to force him to go if he felt unwelcome. He said he didn't want to make things worse for me, but also didn't want to be in an environment where he felt disrespected. I decided to confront my parents about their silence, hoping they would at least defend Mark or talk to Emily. Instead, they told me to pick my battles and that this was Emily's special day and I should just grin and bear it. Now, the wedding is in 2 weeks and I've decided not to attend. I told Emily and my parents that I can't be there if Mark isn't welcome and that I won't go to a celebration where my fiancé is treated like an outsider. Emily called me selfish and said I'm ruining her day and our relationship. My parents say I'm being dramatic and that I should just show up for family. My friends say I'm justified in standing up for Mark and not putting myself in a toxic situation. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to go to my sister's wedding because of how she and my family treated my fiancé. I feel like I'm standing up for myself and my partner, but my family says I'm overreacting and being petty over something that's not a big deal. I'm honestly torn because I love my sister, but I also don't want to be part of something that disrespects the person I'm committed to. What do you think? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her controlling fiancé? This whole situation has spiraled out of control, and I honestly don't even know where to start. I'm hoping you all can help me figure out if I'm really the asshole here or if I'm justified in how I've handled things. A little background. I, 29F, have a younger sister, Emily, 26F. We were pretty close growing up, but have drifted apart in the past few years, mostly because of her now fiancé, Mark, 30M. Mark is, to put it mildly, a control freak. Emily met him about 2 years ago, and at first, I liked him well enough. He was charming and seemed like a good guy. But as time went on, it became clear he has some serious, controlling tendencies. Before getting engaged, Mark started getting involved in every aspect of Emily's life. What she wore, who she talked to, even the way she decorated her apartment. Emily's always been pretty independent, so this was a red flag for me, but I figured maybe she was happy. I tried to be supportive even though I was worried. Fast forward to the engagement announcement about 6 months ago. The wedding planning started immediately, and Mark basically took over the entire process. He insisted on a strict guest list with very little input from Emily, demanded everything be exactly how he wanted it, and started to isolate Emily from her friends and family under the guise of making sure the wedding is perfect. Here's where things got really bad between me and Mark. I was invited to be a bridesmaid, which I initially was happy about. But as soon as the planning began, Mark started to lay down rules that made me uncomfortable. For example, I was told I couldn't wear anything that wasn't a specific shade of green he picked. I wasn't allowed to bring any guests because the venue has limited capacity, but other bridesmaids could bring dates. I wasn't allowed to speak about certain topics around Emily because she needs to stay stress-free. These might seem like small things, but Mark was micromanaging everything about me during the wedding planning process. When I tried to talk to Emily about how controlling Mark was being, she dismissed it, saying, "He's just trying to keep things smooth. You don't understand." It got worse when Mark started excluding my family from the guest list. Our parents, who have always been supportive of Emily, were told they couldn't come because Mark didn't want too many family members. This hurt a lot because Emily and I both come from a fairly close-knit family. When I confronted Emily about excluding our parents, she said it was Mark's decision, and she didn't want to cause conflict. Then came the final straw for me. About a month ago, I found out Mark had been spreading false rumors about me to Emily's other friends and family. Things like me being selfish, uncaring, and trying to sabotage the wedding. None of these things were true, and I was devastated. I confronted Emily, but again, she said Mark was just stressed and that I needed to be patient. After weeks of trying to keep the peace, I finally told Emily that I couldn't be part of a wedding where Mark was treating her and everyone else so poorly. I said I wasn't attending if Mark was there, and I was prepared to explain why to anyone who asked. Emily went ballistic. She called me selfish, accused me of trying to ruin her happiness, and said I was making everything about myself. Mark, meanwhile, spread more rumors and started telling people I was the problem sister. Our parents are caught in the middle and don't know what to do. Some of my mutual friends have taken Mark's side, saying I'm overreacting and being dramatic. So here I am stuck. I feel like I'm standing up for Emily and our family's well-being, but everyone else says I'm the one causing the drama. I've tried to talk to Emily multiple times, but she refuses to listen and insists Mark is perfect. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her controlling fiancé? Or am I being unreasonable by not supporting her on her big day? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house after he repeatedly disrespected me and my family during their engagement party? I, 32F, have always been the family organizer and the person people turn to when they need help with events or general life stuff. I live in a pretty decent-sized house that has been a home for me for the past 7 years. It's where I've hosted countless family gatherings, birthdays, and holidays. I'm close with my family, especially my sister, 28F, but we don't always see eye to eye on everything. That said, I would do just about anything for her. Recently, she got engaged to her boyfriend, Mark, 30M, who I'll be honest, I never really liked. From the beginning, I felt like Mark was a little too controlling and dismissive when it came to my sister's opinions or feelings. He seemed to constantly interrupt her or speak over her, and it rubbed me the wrong way. I never voiced my concerns because I figured this was her relationship, and I wanted to be supportive. When they announced their engagement, I offered to host the engagement party at my house because I have the space and love hosting. I wanted to make sure the day was special for my sister. I put a lot of effort into the party, from organizing the catering, decorations, and invitations to making sure everything ran smoothly. I invited close family and friends, and everything was going well until Mark started acting up. At the party, Mark drank quite a bit and became noticeably rude to people, including my parents and me. He made several sarcastic remarks about how organized and boring the event was, which felt like a direct jab at me since I was the host. When I tried to calmly talk to him about it, he brushed me off and said I was being too sensitive. Things escalated when he criticized the food, saying it was too fancy and that nobody actually likes this stuff. My dad, who was standing nearby, took offense and told Mark to watch his mouth. Mark snapped back with an insult that was a bit personal and crossed the line. I intervened, asking him to leave if he wasn't going to behave, but he didn't listen. My sister looked embarrassed and just kept apologizing. Later that night, Mark started making jokes about my career, which is something I'm passionate about, but can be sensitive about because I'm still trying to build myself professionally. He said it was amusing how I worked so hard for so little recognition and insinuated that I was just pretending to be successful. I lost my temper and told him to get out. He stormed out of the party in a huff. After the party, my sister called me crying, saying that Mark didn't mean anything by it and that I had overreacted. She said she wanted to make things right between us and hoped I would forgive him. I told her that I'm willing to have a conversation if Mark apologizes properly. Then, a few days later, my sister asked if Mark could stay at my house for a few days because their apartment was having some maintenance issues. I was hesitant but didn't want to be unreasonable, so I said yes, with the condition that Mark would be respectful and that I expected an apology for his behavior at the party. When Mark arrived, he acted like nothing had happened and didn't apologize. Within a few hours, he was back to being rude. He criticized how I organized my home, made comments about my cooking when I offered to make dinner, and even questioned why I worked so much. It felt like déjà vu. My parents and sister came over one evening, and Mark made some inappropriate jokes at my expense in front of everyone. I finally snapped and told him he was no longer welcome in my home. I also told my sister she needed to make a choice about whether she was going to stand by me or continue making excuses for Mark's behavior. My sister is furious with me, saying I'm being petty and that I should be more understanding. She said I'm ruining her relationship and turning the family against Mark. My parents are upset, saying I should have been more welcoming and that I overreacted by kicking him out. I feel hurt because I went out of my way to host the engagement party and support my sister, only to be disrespected repeatedly by someone she wants to marry. I believe that respect is a two-way street, and I don't have to tolerate being treated poorly in my own home. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house after his rude and disrespectful behavior. AITA for telling my sister her wedding was a disaster and refusing to pretend otherwise. So, this is a long one, and honestly, I'm still trying to process everything that happened. I, 30M, come from a pretty tight-knit family. I have one sister, Emily, 28F, who recently got married. Our relationship has always been good, but sometimes a bit tense because we have very different personalities and approaches to life. She's the type who loves big social events, extravagant plans, and being the center of attention. I'm much more low-key and straightforward. Emily got engaged about a year ago to her fiancé, Mark, 31M, whom I like well enough. Mark is charming and friendly, but has some control freak tendencies, which I didn't realize would become a huge issue during the wedding planning. Over the last year, as the wedding date got closer, I noticed Emily became more stressed and anxious, but she insisted everything was under control. The wedding itself was held about 2 months ago, and it was honestly one of the most chaotic and disappointing experiences of my life. I'm still angry and hurt by how it all went down, and I've been wrestling with whether I'm in the wrong for how I reacted afterward. Let me break down what happened. First, the guest list was a nightmare. Emily and Mark initially invited about 150 people, including a lot of my extended family and some of my close friends, which I appreciated. But about 2 weeks before the wedding, Mark decided to drastically cut the list due to budget reasons and other priorities. This meant that many of my friends who had already RSVP'd got suddenly uninvited via a group text, not a personal call or message. It felt cold and disrespectful. When I confronted Emily about it, she said Mark was just being practical and that I should understand. On the day of the wedding, things went downhill fast. The ceremony was delayed by an hour because the florist messed up the arrangements, but Mark had refused to allow a backup florist or even a contingency plan. People were standing around confused and uncomfortable in the heat. Then, during the reception, the caterers arrived late, so the food service was delayed and rushed. Several guests, including my elderly grandparents, didn't get their meals on time, and when they did, some plates were missing or wrong. The DJ hired by Mark was extremely unprofessional, playing the wrong songs and ignoring the playlist Emily had painstakingly put together. It was frustrating for everyone, especially those who loved dancing or were looking forward to specific moments like the father-daughter dance. Emily also insisted on a very strict schedule throughout the evening, micromanaging everyone, including guests and the wedding party. It killed any natural flow or fun. The photographer was given orders to only take very posed shots, no candid pictures, which made the entire event feel staged and uncomfortable. I tried to help behind the scenes, but Mark was controlling every detail and pushed me away, which made me feel invisible and powerless. The last straw was when, after the speeches, Mark gave an incredibly awkward and self-centered speech, practically ignoring Emily and talking mostly about his own accomplishments and how lucky he was to get such a great family, but not including or acknowledging Emily's role in the wedding or relationship. Many guests noticed and whispered about how weird it was. Emily seemed upset afterward but was too drained to confront him. I offered to talk to her later, but she said she wanted to avoid drama and enjoy the rest of the night, even though the mood was clearly off. After the wedding ended, a lot of guests reached out to me privately to express how disappointing and disorganized everything had been. I agreed, but when Emily asked me how I thought the wedding went, I was honest and said it was a disaster and I was upset about how her and Mark treated the guests and the family. Emily immediately got defensive and accused me of ruining her special day and being unsupportive. She said I should have kept my opinions to myself and that I was being too negative and not understanding of the stress she was under. I told her that I care about her and wanted her day to be amazing, but the truth was that it wasn't, and pretending otherwise would just be dishonest and hurtful to everyone involved. She hasn't spoken to me since. I'm wondering, AITA for being blunt with my sister about her wedding being a mess and refusing to sugarcoat it to keep the peace. I feel like I was the only one honest enough to say what everyone else was thinking, but maybe I crossed a line? I don't want to lose my sister, but I also can't pretend everything was fine. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she insisted I bring my new husband, who she hasn't met, and explicitly said she doesn't want at her wedding. My 32F sister, 29F, and I have always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, we were close, but as we got older, our values and lifestyles diverged quite a bit. I've always been more career-driven and independent, while she's very traditional and values family above all else. Our parents are a big part of the story here, but I'll get to that. 2 years ago, I got married to my husband, Jason, 35M. We met through work and connected instantly. Jason is kind, supportive, and makes me genuinely happy. However, he's very private and introverted, and he doesn't like big social events. Because of this, I never really pushed for him to meet my extended family immediately, including my sister. Our family has had some tension before, so I wanted to make sure things would be comfortable before introducing him. My sister, on the other hand, got engaged about 6 months ago. When she told me, I was happy for her, but also nervous because she was very vocal about how important her wedding was going to be and that she wanted it to be perfect, meaning she wanted it to follow certain traditional expectations. She's always been very controlling when it comes to family events, especially weddings. When she invited me to the wedding, she said something that stuck with me. You have to bring Jason. It's family, and I want everyone there. At first, I thought it was fair, but I told her Jason might not come because he's not great with crowds and doesn't know the family. She then dropped a bombshell. If Jason isn't coming, don't bother showing up either. I don't want people coming alone or bringing random guests. I was stunned. It felt like an ultimatum, and I felt pressured to force Jason into something he was uncomfortable with just to keep peace. I talked to Jason about it, and he was really stressed out. He didn't want to go, and he didn't want to meet my family in such a high-pressure environment, especially since he had no prior relationship with my sister. I tried to talk to my sister about this. I explained that Jason doesn't feel ready to meet everyone yet, and that it would be a lot for him to attend a wedding where he doesn't know most people. I asked if I could come alone, or if she would be okay with Jason skipping the wedding and meeting her later on. She outright refused. She said, "No, Jason, no you. You can skip the wedding if you want, but don't expect an invite to family events in the future." This left me in an impossible position. I could either force Jason to go and make him miserable, or skip my sister's wedding and likely damage my relationship with her and potentially the rest of my family. I decided to skip the wedding. I sent her a polite message explaining my decision, wishing her the best, and saying I hoped we could talk after the wedding. My parents were upset, but understood my position somewhat. My sister, however, has been posting passive-aggressive messages about family loyalty and choosing family over spouses on social media. She's also telling mutual family members that I'm being disrespectful and selfish for not showing up. I feel bad because I don't want to hurt my sister or cause family drama, but I also can't force Jason into something that makes him uncomfortable. I've suggested meeting my sister and her fiancé one-on-one after the wedding to bridge the gap, but she hasn't responded. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she insisted I bring my husband, whom she hasn't met and refuses to meet otherwise. Or is she being unreasonable by making my attendance conditional on Jason's presence? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her controlling behavior and my fiancé's exclusion? I, 29F, have always had a complicated relationship with my sister, Sarah, 31F. Growing up, she was the perfect older sibling, smart, charming, and always the center of attention. I was the quiet, somewhat overlooked younger sister who struggled to assert herself. Over the years, Sarah's controlling tendencies only grew stronger, especially when it came to family events and major life milestones. Sarah got engaged last year to her boyfriend Mark. From the beginning, I could tell this wedding was going to be a huge production, with Sarah wanting to control every tiny detail. She's very much the my way or the highway type, and her fiancé is incredibly laid back, basically agreeing to whatever she says. I, on the other hand, have a different perspective on weddings and family dynamics. When Sarah first told me about the wedding plans, I was excited but nervous. Our relationship has had its ups and downs, but I wanted to support her. Things started to get tense very quickly, however. She immediately told me she wanted a small, intimate ceremony with only close family and a handful of friends. That meant that only a few family members would be invited, and guests would be severely limited. Here's where it got complicated. I am engaged as well to a wonderful guy named Alex, 30M, and our families have been close for years. My parents have been supportive of our relationship and had hoped to attend Sarah's wedding along with Alex. Sarah, however, made it clear that Alex would not be invited, despite the fact that he's my fiancé and an important part of my life. She claimed it was because she was limiting the guest list, but there was no logical reason to exclude him specifically. I asked her why, and she said she didn't feel comfortable with Alex because he's a bit more introverted and she felt he wouldn't fit in with her vision of the day. This felt really hurtful and unfair to me, considering my family and friends were invited and Alex is a big part of my life. I tried to reason with her, explaining that excluding my fiancé was disrespectful and made me feel unwelcome. She doubled down and said the guest list was final and not open to negotiation. I then asked if I could at least bring a plus one, even if it wasn't Alex, because attending a wedding alone is awkward and uncomfortable. Sarah said no, absolutely not. She insisted the wedding was small and exclusive, and she didn't want to compromise her plans. I felt increasingly hurt and frustrated, but tried to accept it. Then, Sarah started micromanaging other parts of my involvement. She told me what I could wear, what role I could have, which ended up being only a minor part in the ceremony, and even what I could say in my toast. She wanted the wedding to reflect her and Mark's personalities only, not mine. I tried to communicate my discomfort with this, but she dismissed my concerns, saying it was her day. The final straw came when I found out that she had explicitly told our parents to keep certain details secret from me, including some of the guest list and the schedule of events. When I confronted her about this, she said she didn't want me ruining the surprise or causing drama. It felt incredibly controlling and isolating. Alex and I talked about it extensively, and he encouraged me not to let Sarah's behavior ruin my relationship with my family or my own happiness. After a lot of thought, I decided that I wouldn't attend the wedding if Alex wasn't welcome and if I was going to be treated like an outsider. I told Sarah this, explaining that if the wedding wasn't going to include the people important to me, then I didn't want to participate in it. She responded with anger, calling me selfish, dramatic, and accusing me of trying to sabotage her wedding. Our parents are caught in the middle, upset at the tension, but unsure how to resolve it. Some friends say I'm justified in standing up for myself and my fiancé, while others think I'm being unreasonable by refusing to attend my own sister's wedding. I'm feeling torn. I want to support my sister on her big day, but I also don't want to be treated like I don't matter or like Alex doesn't matter. I hate the idea of missing such a significant event, but I also don't want to give in to Sarah's controlling behavior. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her exclusion of my fiancé and controlling behavior. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after he deliberately ruined a family gathering. So, here's a long one that's been eating at me for weeks, and I honestly don't know if I'm the asshole here or if I'm justified. I, 33F, have a younger sister, Emma, 28F, who's been dating her fiancé, Jake, 30M, for about 2 years now. Emma and I were super close growing up, but have grown a bit distant as adults because of various life changes. Despite that, I always wanted to maintain some kind of family connection, especially with my parents aging and wanting to keep traditions alive. My house is kind of the central spot for most family get-togethers because I live close by and my place is pretty big and comfortable. Now, the backstory here is important. Jake and I have never really gotten along. He's got this overbearing, somewhat condescending attitude and likes to be the center of attention, which is exhausting to be around. Emma doesn't see it because she's smitten, but I've witnessed a few things at past family events that rub me the wrong way. He once got into a loud argument with my dad about politics at Thanksgiving, making everyone uncomfortable. Another time, he criticized how I run my household during a dinner, saying my cleaning was not up to standard. I try to brush those off because, well, it's her fiancé, and I want peace at family events. Fast forward to last weekend. We had a planned family barbecue at my place for my dad's 60th birthday. It was supposed to be a chill day with about 20 people from both sides of the family. I spent days preparing food, decorations, and cleaning to make sure everything was perfect. Emma and Jake were supposed to come around 1 p.m. A few minutes before they arrived, my brother-in-law, Emma's ex, Mark, called me, kind of frantic. He told me that Jake had just texted Emma, saying he wouldn't be coming because he didn't feel welcome at the party. I was confused and asked why. Mark said that Jake overheard my dad mention that he wasn't a fan of Jake's attitude and had some concerns about the engagement. This is not entirely untrue. My dad and Jake have clashed before, but it wasn't said in a hostile or public way. I didn't know Jake had heard it, and I definitely wasn't involved in that conversation. Emma was upset, but said she'd come alone since she didn't want to miss her dad's birthday. When she got there, she looked heartbroken but tried to be polite. The party was underway when Jake showed up uninvited about an hour later. I was shocked because I thought he wasn't coming. What happened next was unbelievable. Jake barged into the backyard, clearly drunk, and started loudly accusing my dad of being a hypocritical old man who couldn't accept his future son-in-law. He then proceeded to knock over the birthday cake and spilled drinks on the table. The whole family was stunned and silent, and some people tried to intervene, but Jake kept yelling and causing a scene. Emma was mortified and tried to calm him down, but he refused to leave. I asked him firmly to leave my house immediately, but he ignored me and kept escalating. At one point, he grabbed the speaker and smashed it on the ground. That's when I called the cops. They showed up, talked to everyone, and escorted Jake out after a heated argument. Emma left soon after with tears in her eyes. The aftermath was a mess. Emma blamed me for not standing up for Jake and said I was ruining their relationship by not letting him stay or be welcomed. She accused me of being petty and selfish for calling the cops on her fiancé. Our parents and other family members were divided. Some agreed with me that Jake's behavior was unacceptable, while others thought I should have tried harder to keep the peace and let it slide. Emma hasn't spoken to me since the party, and our family gatherings have become awkward. I still feel that Jake's actions were out of line and that it was reasonable to ask him to leave when he was being disruptive and destructive in my home. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house and calling the cops when he ruined a family celebration? Or should I have just tolerated it for the sake of family harmony? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé's family stay at my house after they treated my family like garbage during their visit? This is going to be a long one, so bear with me. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Emily, 28F, who recently got engaged to a guy named Josh, 30M. Josh comes from a pretty wealthy family with some, let's say, complicated dynamics. Before the engagement, I liked Josh okay. He was polite enough, and Emily seemed happy, so I was supportive. But things took a nosedive after their families met. Background: I live with my husband, Mark, 35M, and our 2 kids in a suburban house. We're comfortable, but not flashy, and we're very welcoming people. We've always opened our home to friends and family whenever possible. Emily and Josh have visited several times, but the last time was when his family came along with them for a weekend stay. Josh's family, his parents, his older sister, and her husband, came for a family reunion type weekend. We had planned to host them all, which was a big ask considering we have a busy household with kids and pets. But I was happy to help out since Emily and Josh asked early and promised it would be a smooth visit. The problem started almost immediately. Josh's sister and her husband treated our house like a hotel, complaining about everything from the temperature to the furniture. They refused to help with anything, including meals or cleaning, and constantly made snide comments about how small and dated everything looked compared to their massive, ultra-modern home. Emily asked me not to say anything and to just let it slide, but it got worse. At one point, Josh's sister took one of my son's favorite toys and left it outside in the rain. When I asked her about it, she just shrugged and said, "Kid stuff is so annoying anyway." That really hurt because I had just bought that toy for his birthday. The worst incident, though, was on the last night of their stay. Josh's parents got into a loud argument with Mark in the living room about politics and family values. They were incredibly rude and dismissive of Mark's opinions, and Mark tried to stay calm, but Emily later told me it was just how they are and that I should not take it personally. I couldn't help but feel disrespected and upset that the people I was hosting couldn't even act civil. After they left, Emily called to say Josh's family was planning to come back next month for a longer visit. She asked if we could host again, promising that this time it would be better. I told her honestly that I didn't feel comfortable hosting after how they treated us, especially since they had done very little to contribute or show gratitude last time. Emily flipped out, accusing me of being petty, jealous, and not family-oriented. She said I was ruining the relationship between her and Josh and that I was hurting her future marriage. She even said Josh's family was used to a certain lifestyle and that I should try harder to accommodate them. I stood my ground and told her no, I wasn't going to subject my family to that again, especially without some kind of change in attitude or effort on their part. She hasn't spoken to me since, and Josh has stopped responding to my messages. Mark thinks I was right now to put my family through that, but Emily is convinced I'm the villain here. So, AITA for refusing to host Josh's family again after they were so disrespectful during their last visit? Or should I just suck it up and keep the peace for Emily's sake? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house after he publicly humiliated me at my own birthday party? I, 28F, have always been close to my younger sister, Emma, 25F. We grew up inseparable and remained tight even as adults, despite living in different cities for the past few years. Emma recently got engaged to a man named Matt, 30M, and I was genuinely happy for her. I met Matt a handful of times, and while he seemed a bit rough around the edges, I didn't think much of it. Emma is an adult and capable of choosing her own partner. Last month, my birthday landed on a weekend, and I decided to host a party in my apartment. I invited close friends and family, including Emma and Matt. I wanted the celebration to be low-key but fun. The night started off great. Lots of laughter, drinks, and catching up. But things took a sharp turn once Matt arrived. Emma and Matt showed up about an hour after the party started. Matt seemed tense and a little awkward, but polite enough. As the night progressed and people got a bit looser, I noticed Matt making increasingly snide remarks to me. At first, I brushed it off as him being uncomfortable in a social setting. However, when I went to grab a drink from the kitchen, Matt followed me and started openly criticizing my cooking. I had made homemade appetizers, saying they tasted like something a toddler would make. I was taken aback, but tried to laugh it off. Things escalated when I made a toast thanking everyone for coming and talking about how much my friends and family mean to me. Matt loudly interrupted, saying, "Well, you sure don't mean much if you can't even throw a decent party." People around us went silent. I was humiliated and didn't know how to respond. Emma looked shocked, but didn't say anything. Later, Matt cornered me again and began mocking my job, which is in the nonprofit sector. He said, "You waste your time with that charity crap. No wonder you're still living in a tiny apartment and can't afford nicer things." I was furious, but I didn't want to cause a scene at my own birthday. I asked him to leave, but he refused. Emma eventually pulled Matt aside and told him to stop being disrespectful. Matt scoffed and said, "Maybe if your sister wasn't so pathetic, I wouldn't have to be this way." At this point, I told Emma I wanted Matt gone. Emma told me I was overreacting and that Matt was just stressed. I felt like I was the one being unreasonable for wanting to celebrate my birthday without being insulted by my sister's fiancé. The rest of the night was uncomfortable, with Matt sulking and throwing jabs whenever I wasn't looking. When it was time to go, Matt refused to leave. Emma said they were crashing at my place because they didn't want to drive back late. I flat out told her no. I said, "After everything he said and did tonight, I'm not comfortable having him in my home." Emma argued that it was her fiancé and that I was ruining things between us, but I stood firm. Emma and Matt left eventually, but the damage was done. Emma hasn't spoken to me since. She's been posting vague comments on social media about family loyalty and knowing when to pick sides, clearly implying that I'm the problem. Mutual friends have reached out, saying I should apologize and make peace for the sake of my sister. I don't feel like I owe Matt or Emma anything. I was the one who got humiliated at my own party, and Matt refused to respect my home or my feelings. Am I the asshole for refusing to let Matt stay at my place and standing up for myself? Or should I apologize and try to smooth things over with my sister? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she disinvited my entire family over a minor disagreement? My 29M sister, 27F, and I have always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, we were close but also competitive, which sometimes led to petty fights, but nothing that couldn't be resolved quickly. Our parents have always been close with both of us, and we've maintained a fairly normal family dynamic until recently. About 6 months ago, my sister got engaged to her fiancé, Mark. We were all thrilled. Mark is a good guy, and we were genuinely happy for her. She started planning the wedding right away, and I was honored when she asked me to be her best man. Everything seemed great until she started making changes to the guest list. Initially, she said it would be a small, intimate wedding with just close family and friends. No big deal, we understood. The problem started when she suddenly decided to cut down the number of guests drastically. My parents, my wife, 28F, and I were on the original list. However, 2 months ago, my sister called me and said she was removing my entire family from the guest list. I was shocked and asked why. Her reason? Apparently, she had overheard my wife make a comment at a family gathering that wasn't very supportive of her fiancé. According to my sister, this comment was disrespectful and made her feel that my wife didn't approve of Mark or their relationship. She described it as a red flag and felt that having my family there would bring tension to the wedding. The thing is, the comment my wife made was more of a vague observation and definitely not meant to be hurtful or disrespectful. It was something like, "I hope Mark understands what he's getting into," referring to my sister's past relationships, which had been complicated. It was definitely not a direct attack on Mark or their relationship. When I told my sister this, she said that didn't matter because it made her uncomfortable. I tried to reason with her, telling her that this was a huge overreaction and that my family had done nothing to deserve being uninvited. I reminded her that weddings are about bringing people together, not pushing people away over minor misunderstandings or perceived slights. She wouldn't budge. She said the guest list was final and she didn't want to cause drama on her wedding day. At this point, I felt blindsided and hurt. I was supposed to be the best man, and now I wasn't even invited to the wedding, nor was my wife or my parents. I asked if I could at least come alone, but she refused. I told her that if she didn't invite my family, I wasn't going either. I told her it felt unfair and like she was punishing us all for something that could have been cleared up with a simple conversation. She accused me of trying to manipulate her and said that if I truly cared about her, I would respect her wishes. Since then, the relationship between us has become very strained. I haven't spoken much to her, and I'm seriously considering not attending the wedding or any related events. My parents are upset, but are trying to stay neutral, which is frustrating. Some mutual friends have told me that maybe I'm overreacting and that if my sister feels this way, I should just respect it. But it feels like a huge betrayal to me. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she disinvited my entire family over a minor misunderstanding? Or is my sister being unreasonable and hurtful by cutting us out like this? AITA for refusing to babysit my sister's kids after she repeatedly disrespected my boundaries and accused me of being selfish? So, this is a long story with a lot of context, but I'll try to keep it as clear as possible. I, 32M, have a younger sister, Anna, 28F, who has two kids aged 4 and 6. I've always been close to my sister growing up, but as we got older, things have become a bit more strained, mostly because of how she treats me when it comes to her kids and my personal boundaries. A few years ago, before she had kids, we were tight. I used to hang out with her and her friends. We'd go out for drinks, watch movies, and all that. But when Anna got pregnant with her first kid, everything changed. She became very protective and, frankly, a little controlling about how people should treat her and her children. I got it. Becoming a parent changes you. But what bothered me was how she started using guilt trips and manipulation to get what she wanted from me. The main issue began when her first kid was about a year old. She started asking me to babysit frequently, sometimes on very short notice. At first, I didn't mind. I love kids, and I thought it'd be nice to help my sister out. But it quickly turned into a pattern. She called me multiple times a week, asking me to watch the kids during her me time or when she just didn't feel like dealing with them. I set boundaries early on, telling her I could babysit occasionally, but couldn't make a regular thing because of my job and personal life. Anna seemed to understand, but then kept pushing, saying things like, "You don't even have a life, you're just sitting at home anyway," or "If you loved me, you'd help more." I was uncomfortable with that kind of guilt tripping, but tried to ignore it. Fast forward a couple of years, Anna now has 2 kids, and her demands have only increased. She frequently texts or calls me at odd hours asking if I can watch the kids last minute, sometimes even during important work events or commitments I have. If I say no, she gets upset and accuses me of being selfish or not caring about her or the kids. Last Christmas, she asked me to babysit both kids for an entire weekend so she and her husband could have a romantic getaway. I said no because I had planned to spend the holiday with my own partner and family. Anna exploded, sending me a series of angry texts about how I was ruining the family and being selfish. I stood my ground but felt hurt and frustrated. The final straw happened last month. I had a big presentation at work, something I had been preparing for months. The day before, Anna calls me in tears, saying she and her husband had a last-minute emergency and asked if I could watch the kids for the next 2 days. I politely declined, explaining my work situation and how important this was for me. She flipped out, saying I was abandoning her, that she didn't know what she was going to do, and that I didn't care about family. At this point, I realized this was more than just about babysitting. Anna had been disrespecting my boundaries for years, and instead of appreciating when I helped, she only focused on guilt-tripping me when I didn't. I told her that while I love her and her kids, I wasn't going to sacrifice my mental health, work, or personal life to be her unpaid babysitter. I also said she needed to respect my boundaries if she wanted any kind of relationship with me. She hasn't spoken to me since and has blocked me on social media. My parents are caught in the middle, telling me I should be more supportive and family comes first. But I feel like I've done enough and that Anna has taken advantage of my kindness for too long. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to babysit my sister's kids after she repeatedly disrespected my boundaries and guilt-tripped me when I said no? Should I just give in and keep babysitting despite how I feel? Or am I justified in standing my ground? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of how she treated my family during the planning? This has been eating at me for months, and I've debated whether or not I'm being unreasonable. I'm 29F, the younger sister of Sarah, 33F, who got engaged about a year ago. Our family is pretty close, or at least it used to be. We grew up in a small town with our parents and two younger brothers. Our parents are both retired teachers and have always been supportive of all of us. When Sarah got engaged, everyone was happy and excited. But things started to go downhill pretty quickly during the wedding planning. Sarah and her fiancé, Mike, live about 2 hours away from us now, so most of the planning was happening without much direct involvement from our parents or me. However, my mom volunteered to help with the guest list, invitations, and some decorations since she's crafty and wanted to be involved. The issues began when Sarah started making what I thought were unreasonable demands about who could be invited. She insisted on a small, intimate wedding of only 50 people, which is understandable, but then she started excluding people who had been in our family's lives for years. For example, she left out several of my childhood friends who were close to the family, my parents' longtime colleagues, and even distant relatives who had always been invited to big family events. When my mom questioned this, Sarah was dismissive and told her the wedding was her day, and they were not obligated to invite everyone. What really stung was when Sarah sent out the invitations. She invited her fiancé's entire family, including distant cousins and colleagues from his work, many of whom my parents and I had never met or even heard of. Meanwhile, my family was told not to bring any plus ones, even for people in serious relationships. For example, my boyfriend of 4 years was explicitly told he could not come. Sarah said it was because the venue was small and they had to prioritize family, but it felt incredibly unfair. Around the same time, my parents and I found out Sarah and Mike had hired a wedding planner who was not only expensive, but also apparently had full control over the planning details. Whenever my mom tried to contribute or make suggestions, she was told to leave it to the professionals, and that her ideas weren't in line with the vision. The final blow came when Sarah announced that the rehearsal dinner would be for her side of the family and Mike's only. Our parents, who had been excited about spending time with everyone, were completely excluded, and my brothers and I were only invited to the ceremony and reception. Sarah told my mom that she needed to keep the events separate so that everyone could relax and enjoy themselves without drama. This felt like a clear message that our family wasn't welcome to fully participate. I tried to talk to Sarah about all of this several times. I expressed how hurt my family was feeling and asked if there was a way to include us more. She brushed it off and said she was overwhelmed and needed to focus on what mattered most to her. She accused me of trying to make everything about my family and said I was being selfish for wanting more involvement. I was so hurt and frustrated that I started pulling away emotionally. I felt like Sarah was prioritizing appearances and her fiancé's family over the people who raised her and had been there for her entire life. A few weeks ago, my parents asked me if I was planning to attend the wedding. I was honest and told them I wasn't sure I could. I didn't want to support an event that excluded and disrespected the people I loved most. When I told Sarah I was considering not coming, she called me and yelled, accusing me of trying to sabotage her wedding and being dramatic. She said I was choosing to be the villain and that she didn't want me there if I was going to bring negativity. Since then, my parents have been caught in the middle, feeling torn between their two daughters. I want to be clear that I'm not trying to ruin Sarah's day. I've tried to communicate, and I genuinely want to celebrate her marriage. But I also don't want to be a guest at a wedding where my family is sidelined and disrespected. I've told my parents I'm willing to support her in other ways, like helping after the wedding or celebrating privately later, but I'm standing firm on not attending the ceremony or reception. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding over how she treated my family during the planning? Or should I just suck it up and go for the sake of family unity? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.